Hello my friends, in this video we're going to take a look at how to play Summoner in Ashes of Creation. Now this game is very deep, there's a ton going on, there's a bunch of different systems at play. In this video we're going to focus exclusively on early combat, leveling as a Summoner from 1 through 10. And we're going to take a look not only at how to play a Summoner well in groups, but also how to be very effective solo. It is very much a pet class. A huge amount of the kit revolves around your summons. And with 3 different summon options, you can basically pseudo fill any role. You can be a tank, you can be a healer, and you can be a DPS, and you can do these things solo or in a group. Now, before you decide to roll a summoner, I want to make sure you're aware that they're not going to be able to tank as well as a tank can. They're not going to be able to heal as well as a cleric can. In a group especially, they can actually do pretty good DPS with their dot cleave, especially when they get some of their AoE online. However, their advantage is that they can pseudo-fill all of those roles. So a summoner can provide big DPS while having a healer pet out to off-heal, can provide DPS while having a tank out to basically play that off-tank role, to pull, to hold aggro. The DPS pet can consistently incapacitate like a sap if you need some sort of crowd control in your group. And they also are able to quickly switch between these roles at any given time during combat. So if one of their pets dies or if they need to get some off heals out, it just takes a 6-second summon and they can start providing that support. But playing solo, especially with the tank minion out, they are incredibly powerful. Think Warlock with a Voidwalker, and wow, they can do a lot of stuff that other classes can't. So in this video, we're going to start off like you've never played this game before, taking a quick look at the absolute basics of combat. We'll follow that with some extra tips and tricks on pet control and playing in groups, and then take a super quick look at gear, items, and quests to close things out. If you're looking for beginner's guides on other classes, I've already made a guide for Mage, Rogue, and Hunter. You can find those on the channel. Following Summoner, I'm going to be doing my very best to finish beginner's guides for the other 4 classes as well. So if you don't want to miss that stuff, be sure to subscribe to the channel. And if you find this video useful, don't forget to give it a like, drop a comment, maybe share it with a friend. All that stuff really does help me out, letting the algorithm push the video. All right, so diving in, this is very much a tab targeting MMORPG. So if you're familiar with World of Warcraft or other similar types of games, this looks like it's very much still under development, but if you hit comma just to the right of M, there is actually sort of an action combat mode where you get a crosshair, all of a sudden your right click becomes block, your left click becomes auto attack. And so if you're looking for more of like an action combat vibe, using this mode might be worth checking out. Big shout out to someone in the YouTube comments and then a couple people in chat yesterday pointing this out to me. I was able to test it a bit yesterday. It's interesting. I think it's going to be a little more applicable to non-caster classes. It feels a little bit weird as a caster, but it's an option that I wanted to mention. Now, even without this mode, there are actually some action combat elements added on top of this sort of normal spell rotation we are used to from these kind of games. So you can see in addition to my health and mana, I also have a stamina bar. If we look to the left of my action bar here, I can not only dodge with this stamina, I can also block and I can also sprint. And so sort of on top of this big kind of ability rotation we are focusing on, we actually do have some of that action combat coming into play. In addition, we don't just have one weapon. As you can see here, I'm weapon swapping between a melee weapon and a ranged weapon. So every class is going to be able to rock both of these different slots. You have a lot of different options you can kind of try in these windows with a lot of these different weapon types. And then each weapon type actually has its own skill tree as well as weapon progression that you level up as you use that weapon. This 2-weapon system has very similar vibes to New World, where the more you use your 2 weapons, the more they level up. And then you have an independent weapon skill tree here where you can make fairly compelling choices to sort of alter the way your 2 weapons are working as well. If we hover the tooltip here, we can see under our 3 kind of stamina consuming buttons, mine are different from default keybinds. So if you want to change these keybinds away from the default to whatever you're feeling, just go game options, keybinds, and then you can find all that kind of stuff under here. But if I hover my weapon here, it's basically showing me my auto attack. So on top of this ability rotation that we are working, whatever weapon we're wielding also has the ability to auto attack as well. And each of these auto attacks is going to have different sort of combo chains. We can see this is going to give you all the details of essentially what is happening when you do auto attack. So we can see there's kind of different damage levels, different effects going on, and these lead into what are called finishers. So we can see after this 3rd attack, which is the default kind of final attack for the spellbook, this 4th one, extended finisher, sort of unlocks as we level it up. But starting out, you're just going to see these first 3. So every time you do the 3rd attack, That's the finisher, okay? There are certain effects and abilities that come into play when you get to the finisher in your weapon combo. So anytime you see finisher, what that means is you have to hit with the final attack of your weapon combo. And if we take a look back at our skill tree, we can essentially influence what happens on this finisher by these different choices in the middle of the tree. And this first one is called a deadly finisher. So a deadly finisher is different from a finisher in that the deadly finisher has a % chance to proc off of the finisher. So initially we can see here, if I pick this burn, every time I use my third attack with the finisher, there would be a 25% chance of this deadly finisher to happen. Now we can actually increase that chance with some choices here to where on my spellbook, we actually can see I have a 55% chance to proc this deadly finisher when I use my third attack. We can see with my next choice here, all my finishers are going to also give me mana back through this refreshing follow through. So every time I hit my third attack with my spellbook, I am going to get a little bit of mana back. Now, in addition to our skill tree and our 2 weapon trees, we also have a stamina tree. And these are basically skill points that interact with the stamina of the action combat we were just talking about. And basically each of these kind of paths links up with one of these 3 things. So you can see right here, we essentially have a sprint path, which is going to help our sprint be better. We have a dodge path, which is going to help our dodge be better. And we have a block path, which is going to help the block be better. And then on this final tab, if you click over, you're going to see basically the full list of kind of all your spells and abilities, along with your pet's abilities in this list as well. All right, now let's get into the abilities and rotation and work on building out a really strong spell rotation from level 1 all the way up through level 10. Okay, so we're going to drop all these points out and we're going to start building a rotation from level 1 here. So initially you're going to have this option to pick your very first pet. This is sort of dealer's choice. You know, I recommend you to try all 3 of them and kind of lean into whichever one you're feeling. However, I will say just for leveling up solo, especially this Spirit Guardian, the tank one, is extremely strong. So this guy basically by himself, well, with me alongside him, controlling him, but he was able to carry not only me, but a bunch of my friends all the way up to level 10 and beyond over these first 2 days of play. It is an extremely powerful summon, especially once you sort of learn how to micromanage not only its abilities, but also its movement. Now, after we talk about the abilities, I'm going to talk about a couple options of how you can kind of wield these summons to your play style. I like having full control over the summon, where I essentially put it in passive stance. I turn off automate pet abilities and I bind all of its abilities on my bar like it's just an extension of my character, so I have absolute control over what this guy does. The other thing we're going to get at level 1 is our starting ability, Spirit Shred. So we can see this is basically a spirit damage dot that ticks every 2 seconds for 12 seconds and can be extended up to 20 seconds. If we are able to extend it up to 20 seconds, it is going to apply Demoralize. This is just a straight up 10% damage reduction, and this can also be extended from 8 to 20 seconds as well. Big thing here, this does not disrupt weapon combo sequences and the weapon combo finisher. So the third attack we were just talking about, remember when you see the word finisher, that means the final attack on your weapon. There is an auto attack option. If we go to game options, gameplay, combat, right here, you'll see this auto attack with auto attack enabled after melee ability, after ranged ability. So what this means essentially is if you check this box, it's going to just stay on after I press the button once. If I have this unchecked, I actually have to hold my auto attack down to be able to do it. So we can see here without it on, if I hold mouse 5, you know, it's going to go into my auto attack sequence. The main kind of downside here is you can see I'm trying to cast my Spirit Essence and occasionally it won't cast if I'm kind of in the middle of part of this combo. See how I just pressed it and nothing actually happened? So that's really the downside of not having this checked. What I found is if you actually check this box, now you just press it once and it's on. Now I can use my Q basically at any part of this combo and it's not going to interrupt the combo. Just like it says in the tooltip here, lets your kind of weapon combo sequence go through. So specifically for classes like Summoner, classes like Rogue that have a specific ability that they're using a lot that does not disrupt the weapon combo sequence, I think leveraging this auto attack enabled is useful because it lets you reliably cast this, where at least right now, without this checked, like some of the times when you try to cast Spirit Shred while you're holding your weapon attack down, it's just not going to go. But then these other 2 boxes basically are what turns this on. So you can opt to turn the auto attack on automatically without even hitting this mouse button, checking either of these boxes. So this one will do that after you do a melee ability. This one will do that after you do a ranged ability. So if you check all three of those, basically if you initiate any kind of, offensive action in combat, your auto attack is just going to turn on, and you're not going to really have to worry about pressing your auto attack button until it gets turned off. The main time it's going to fall off is if like you kill something, now you have nothing targeted, then it's going to stop. So if you target something new and you don't cast anything yet, you're not going to auto attack until you press the button, if that makes sense. So I would encourage you to mess with these options, see what feels good. But if you start with all three of them on, you can kind of go from there. And finally, each tick of this generates 1 essence. So this is something that you're basically going to constantly want to be casting and keeping up and extending the duration of. It's kind of our main starter dot that we want to just always have applied to as many targets as possible. And that's a great opportunity to talk about essence. So what is essence? Essence is our pet's ability to do things. So you can see your pet has mana. Weirdly enough, the mana is not really the limiting factor on what lets you use your pet's abilities. In fact, most of their abilities don't actually consume mana at all. What they cost is essence. So essence is not shown here. It's shown here in this orange bar around your icon. It's basically Summoner's unique resource. And there are multiple ways to build this. When your Spirit Guardian is attacking, they are generating essence. You generate essence passively over time as you're just chilling, but that things like the dot ticks of your Spirit Shred are also going to generate essence. Essence is a core resource in letting your pet do cool things and is very essential to being an effective summoner. And we can see a little more details of that here shown in Essence Bound. You share an unbreakable bond with your summoned vessel. While any vessel is summoned, you may generate essence by various means, which your vessel may spend to perform powerful abilities. Generate 1 essence passively every second. Your vessel's basic attacks generate 1 essence, and your weapon combo finishers, there's our finisher word again, the final attack of our chain, is also going to generate 5 essence. Okay. Awesome. So at level 1, we are going to have our Spirit Shred ability, and we are going to have our first summon. And basically what we are going to do is our pet's going to have this command called sick. This is basically attack. We're going to just send our pet on whatever we're attacking. We are going to use our Spirit Shred. That's going to start our auto attack. And we are going to let the third one go through, then we're going to Spirit Shred again. We can see it extends the duration because I cast it again, and it will, at the 20 seconds, do the weaken thing. And you basically just want to keep casting Spirit Shred here as it resets every 3 attacks. So it's Spirit Shred, 3 attacks, Spirit Shred, 3 attacks, and just rip your way through level 1 on some goblins doing this. Keep in mind though, alongside of this, you are going to be able to start using your pet's abilities. So whichever one you're kind of leaning into, you can start trying out the different options. For the tank pet here, we basically have a big AoE stomp damage thing. We have a really cool like defensive shield parry that reflects a bit of damage if you time it on big attacks. And then we also have our classic taunt. And this actually has a range, so your Spirit Guardian does not have to be on top of stuff to taunt it. It can taunt from a range, and it's actually a pretty generous range, 30 meters. This is going to cost 15 essence though. But if you ever get extra mobs on you or anything, you can simply target them, press taunt with your Spirit Guardian, and it will peel them off you so you can focus on blasting it. Now, for our very first skill point, when we get level 2, we are going to go into Reconstruct, basically just because how insanely valuable it is to be able to heal our summon. So this is essentially a 15-second cooldown heal on our summon buddy, whichever one we have out. It's basically an instant cast. It's a very quick cast, and it's going to do this nice 150% healing power heal over time for 10 seconds. And this is basically the first step of how we are going to have sort of unlimited sustain churning through mobs as a summoner. So you really want to try to keep your pet as healthy as possible and use this early on in fights so that healing is already started and you can keep your pet topped off. And keeping this up is going to become more and more important the deeper you get into the game. So now at level 2, same exact thing where we are essentially going to start Spirit Shredding something. We're going to sick our pet on it, except now we're going to just start this heal going to keep our pet topped off. It does take a big chunk of mana, so you don't necessarily want to overheal if your pet's already full. But again, you're kind of just using your Spirit Shred every 3 attacks, which will reset that cooldown. And you want to just keep stacking it up and keep cooking, especially early on against the goblins. You actually very much can group up multiple mobs and just power smash them with this slam. And we can see there's not a cooldown on this other than the essence it uses. So you can use it multiple times in a row as long as you have enough essence here in the top left. If you're using the DPS pet, you can do the same thing with the Eviscerate. If you're using the Mystic, you can do the same thing with the Explosion. And I do want to make the comment that this reconstruct ability is going to be most valuable for your tank summon, because your tank summon can always keep everything off of you with this AoE aggro ability as well as its taunt. It's very good at holding aggro. Having this heal is crucial for the tank, not as quite as crucial for the healing guardian or the DPS guardian. So if you are using either of those other ones early on, you maybe want to skip this until you get a little bit later on. However, I will say at level 2, with just your tank guy in this, you can actually just turbo smash like 3 to 5 goblins at a time. He is extremely strong at lower levels. Okay, so for our second ability, we are going to grab Mortal Blast. And this is basically the second big part of our pump right behind Spirit Shred. So this is a cast time that does big necrotic damage. It's also going to have really nice splash damage. So if you are grouping up groups of like multiple goblins or lower level mobs around your tank, this is a perfect thing to be able to just annihilate those groups with kind of an AoE spell cleave. The other really cool thing about this spell is it has 3 charges. So you can actually rip multiple in a row. The other really cool thing it does is it actually spreads our Spirit Shred to nearby enemies. So if we open up a fight, you know, sending our pet tank in, gathering up a couple goblins, and we are able to Spirit Shred and then Mortal Blast, this first Mortal Blast in this AoE effect is going to spread that Spirit Shred to all the nearby enemies. So we can see it in effect right here. As this raider comes up, I'm going to want to taunt this raider off of me, right? I can use this kind of cleave if I want. Remember, I want to keep my heal up to make sure my guardian is healthy. A little bit of tactics here you can use to avoid damage is kind of moving him around to kite like this, which is actually more effective than you would think to let your heal sort of get that value through before he actually dies. But like we were saying, if we have the Spirit Shred up and we use the Mortal Blast, boom, it's going to spread it to this other guy. See how it's now on the raider? All right, so for level 4, with our third skill point here, we are going to grab Dimensional Bolt. And this is not only just a really nice instant cast, low mana, 150% spell damage, it's also going to let you teleport your pet. And again, this is very useful if you are using the tank pet. Not really as necessary if you're using the DPS pet because it does have lunge. However, just the raw damage without even using the teleport is still very good. So I still recommend it as an early spell. And then the teleport also not really useful on the healer as much. But on the tank, this Dimensional Bolt teleport is actually awesome because instead of waiting, you know, for this runtime for your tank to sort of engage on something, like from even if your tank is over here, from the previous fight, I can just throw a bolt and instantly he's right on top of him, starting to generate that aggro that I need him to generate to hold threat. So as soon as you do that, we're going to do the same exact thing. We're basically using, you know, Spirit Shred on cooldown. We're waiting for it to reset off of our autos, and then we're also using our Mortal Blast to spread that Spirit Shred and also just pump damage when your bolt's back up. Literally just use it for the, you know, 150% spell damage. Make sure you're keeping your reconstruct up on your pet when you can, and basically, you know, use your pet as the giant meat shield he is to be able to just completely annihilate mobs. With our fourth point, we are going to get Disintegrate. And this is just a really fun, cool ability. It's just a giant channeled beam of death. We can see it's also going to apply snares, so it's a slow. So if stuff is moving toward you, this is a really good spell to kind of lock it down and not let it reach you as quickly. However, we are mainly going to be using it for the damage pump and especially using it to pop our Hex, which we are going to be getting next. So now we basically just want to add Disintegrate into our rotation on cooldown. So I throw my dude in with a Dimension Bolt. He is on top of him. He's starting his thing. I want to start the early heal on him. I want to Spirit Shred as soon as possible. I want to get my Mortal Blast cooldown rolling. As soon as I do that, I want to get my Disintegrate cooldown rolling as well. So once we hit level 6 and we get our 5th spell point, we're going to unlock this next tier of abilities. Along with this, we get a couple free options, including this second summon selection. So this isn't going to let you have 2 summons at the same time. What this is going to let you do is essentially pick another one that's locked in permanently that you can also have on your hotbar. So let's say, for instance, my Guardian, you know, was killed in this battle I'm having, and I actually do have a moment to summon in combat. I'm going to have a minute cooldown on the Guardian when it dies, but I still can pull out my Mystic because I have the skill selected and have it bound. So you want to pick whatever one you want as sort of your backup summon here, and then we're eventually going to get the third one up here as well. The other kind of free option you can look at is this defensive transformation, and this is basically going to reverse the scaling of your pet's physical defense and magical defense. This is something you want to basically toggle based on the gear you're wearing. So depending on whatever it is you sort of have on based on the gear you're getting as you go, you want to look at your physical defense, look at your magical defense, and determine which one is higher based off your gear. So you can see I have significantly higher physical defense, 22.2%, than I do magical defense right now, 7.2%, right? So I actually want to keep this unchecked because I want my pet's physical defense, which is what I want to be the highest, scaling with my physical defense because my physical defense is the highest. If I happen to be wearing all magical defense gear, like if I was wearing all kind of cloth caster stuff, if I had a more ideal set, that's when it would make sense to probably use this so that now your pet's physical defense is scaling off the magical defense you're stacking on your gear rather than the other way around. For our 5th skill point here at level 6, we are going to go up and snag this body and spirit. And this is just an extremely powerful passive that is going to be part of this kind of trinity loop we're going to build where our abilities are going to be giving our summons health and mana. So we're going to be healing our summons with our damage. And again, this sort of healing loop is very much built around the tank summon, but it is incredibly powerful and basically gives you close to infinite mana sustain as well as infinite health sustain for your pet. So if you're looking to just churn through mobs very efficiently, solo or in a group, once we get our next level, we're going to get Siphon Vessel. This is basically going to let us have an unstoppable sort of loop of mana and health regeneration, not only for us, but for our pets as well. We can see here Spirit Shred and Mortal Blast. So our two main pieces of our pump, the Spirit Shred, which is the ability we started with, and the Mortal Blast we're using with the 3 charges to spread that Spirit Shred, are going to heal our vessel for 20% of their damage. So just got a like nice spell vamp, kind of healing your vessel as you pump. And then it's also going to regenerate 5% of the damage as mana to your vessel as well. So we're going to lock this baby in and nothing is really going to change about our rotation at this point. We're going to basically be doing the same exact things we were doing, except our pet is now going to be getting health from these 2 spells. Now, when this really starts to shine is when we get our next skill point, which we are going to drop into Siphon Vessel here at level 7. This transfers mana from your active vessel to yourself equal to 15% its maximum mana. And we can see this ability itself does not cost any mana to cast. It costs 30 essence. Remember, essence is the resource that our pets use for their abilities. So this is actually a pet ability that we are grabbing. It's not a mana consuming ability of our own. So you want to think of Siphon Vessel in the same exact category as Stomp, as Brace, or as any of the other inherent pet abilities. Now, what this kind of loop I've been talking about lets us do is it lets us heal our pet with Reconstruct. We are also healing our pet with our constant Spirit Shred and Mortal Blast damage. All of that damage is also generating mana for it. We can then pull that mana out of our pet with Siphon Vessel by using most of its essence for this instead of for its abilities. And that's going to let us always have Reconstruct up because Reconstruct costs a lot of mana to cast. But if we're constantly pulling our pet's mana away, we're going to be able to press this button on cooldown no matter what, as long as our pet is attacking and generating essence. So in my opinion, these 3 abilities right here with the pet tank are extremely, extremely powerful, especially at early levels, to let you basically take on anything you want. Multiple mobs, stronger mobs, 1-star elites. Once you get these 3 things online at level 7, you are very much going to be cooking. So it's essentially the same exact rotation we were looking at before, except now we're keeping our heal up, and anytime we're starting to lose any significant amount of mana, we want to do this mana draw. And you're going to end up spending a significant portion of your pet's essence on this Siphon now instead of on its own ability. So it's occasionally going to make sense to Stomp, but once you get this online, it's really going to make the most sense to Stomp when you're trying to generate aggro on multiple mobs. This is a great AoE damaging ability. This guy generates a lot of threat inherently. So this is a great way to sort of, when you send your pet in and it's a group of more than one, give it an early Stomp to make sure the sort of threat of everything around it is on your pet. But then just like we were talking about, we are always keeping Reconstruct up, and then we're just watching our mana bar, and as soon as we start to lose any significant amount, we're pulling essence out of our pet. For these big abilities like Heavy Slash, you do want to consider using Brace if you have the essence for it. This is like the most essence cost out of any of the abilities for our Spirit Guardian. On the next Heavy Slash, I'll use it so you can kind of see the reflect effect. But if you time it right, see how we get this nice kind of reverse damage onto the Raider there? So not only do you get the shield to reflect the damage so your pet doesn't take any, you also trade some damage back. So it's a really nice kind of like parry mechanic. But the other thing you can do, just like you yourself can dodge attacks and their hitbox, which we'll look at on the next Raider, I'll show you a little more clearly, you can use your pet's manual movement to also dodge, sidestep, avoid attacks. So with the proper sort of micro on your pet's movements, you can actually avoid a significant amount of damage on your pet as well. Okay, so now we're hitting level 8 with our 7th point. We are going to take Hex. Now, Hex, a very strong ability. The main problem with it very early on is you're going to sort of kill stuff before it has a chance to proc. But once you get closer to level 10, like right around the level 8 area, and especially once you kind of have this loop online, Hex becomes extremely powerful. And we can see here our Spirit Shred, which is our main kind of pump we've been using since the beginning, along with Disintegrate and along with our pet's attacks, are all going to actually reduce the duration of Hex. So Hex, basically you put it on, it doesn't do anything until it expires. When it expires, it explodes for fatty damage, and it's also going to apply this exposed debuff. And this is really big. It actually makes the target take 25% more damage from all debuff sources. So not only your dots, now rogue bleeds, rogue poison, you know, burn from mage, like every other kind of like damage debuff in the game, if you're grouped with anyone, is also going to be benefiting from this exposed. So with this ability, the name of the game is put it on early so the cooldown can start to tick, and then get it to pop as soon as you can. We can see here when Hex expires or the target dies, its cooldown is reset. So you're constantly looking, as soon as you pick up the spell, you're constantly sort of looking to keep Hex up. You want to put Hex up as your first or second spell, and then you want to basically put it out again as soon as it comes off of cooldown. So if we're fighting this guy, I want to get my Hex out. Now my Spirit Shred's going to reduce that cooldown. I'm going to start my Mortal Blast cooldowns. I'm now going to use my Disintegrate to start that cooldown ticking. This is going to lower the cooldown of Hex. Boom. My Hex just popped. It's back up. Reapply the Hex. Make sure my pet's getting healed this whole time. You want to keep Reconstruct up the entire time. I'll show you the Heavy Strike sidestep here. So he's going to Heavy Slash. I can literally just move like that and avoid the damage. So if you're paying attention for enemy mobs hitboxes and such, even if your Guardian is low like this, like we're going to be able to outlast this Raider as long as I keep my heal up, and as long as I move out of this Heavy Slash, we're going to be able to out-sustain this guy even if I don't use any abilities, right? So there is ends up being actually an incredible amount of power in also the kind of pet micro and the movement as well. When we hit level 9 and get our 8th ability point, we are going to drop it into Soul Flare. And this is just a really, really cool ability. It's essentially an AoE explosion around your pet that does big, big damage, and it stuns everything around it. So just like really powerful group crowd control, as well as just a big nuke. The main downside is it does have a pretty significant mana cost, as well as a 30-second cooldown. However, well worth it in the end, especially in situations where you are taking on multiple mobs. So a really strong open with your tank once you kind of have your Soul Flare online is to throw your Dimension Bolt. As you're teleporting your pet, you want to charge up your Soul Flare, so as soon as he gets there, you get an AoE explosion detonation, and then you want to throw in a ground stomp, and that's basically going to kind of guarantee your pet is opening with aggro on the group, and then you can kind of go into the rest of your normal rotation where that. You're going to want to follow that with a Reconstruct right after. What else you can do is kind of press Reconstruct kind of right before battle, you know, right before you do throw the Dimension Bolt, so that that heal is already ticking and you don't have to worry about it, you know, right at the start of combat. Let's do it that way. Let's rip our Reconstruct. We're going to throw our Dimension Bolt. We're going to start our channel. We're going to teleport our guy. Now it's going to instantly blow up and we're going to stomp. And I stomped even a bit late there. Otherwise it would have grabbed the Raider, and the explosion actually missed the Raider. But ideally the explosion kind of hits everyone right. Going to want to taunt the Raider off of me for now as we go to finish this Arsonist. But now back into our normal spell rotation, make sure the heal stays up, put our Hex out, put our Spirit Shred out, get our Mortal Blast spreading that Spirit Shred, get our Disintegrate cooking, our Hex down. As soon as our mana starts to get peeled out, we want to pull some back from our minion. We want to make sure our Hex is recast. As soon as that detonates, we can go for another AoE stun here. Going to kill this Arsonist with it very likely. He is super low. Now he is dead. We're going to put our pet back onto the Raider. We're going to give it a heal. We're going to pull some mana back because we're getting low. See, our pet's mana is completely fine. We really want to be using as much of our pet's mana as we can, because if you're rotating this properly, like if you watch my last couple streams on the live tab of this YouTube channel, you're going to be able to see I'm actually drawing all of my pet's mana out eventually because of the amount I'm sort of using this mana draw. And see, I let my heal drop here because I'm talking, and you almost never want to let your Reconstruct drop. You always want him ticking, and if you're in a situation where he's getting low, you want to use his movement like this. Just bind, command, move to location, spam it around so he is able to dodge those skill attacks. That's a really good way to negate a lot of damage if you don't have enough to use your Brace. Brace is also a really good option for these kind of abilities because, see, I soak it with my shield, I reflect some damage back. So for big abilities, you want to be keeping an eye out to use your Brace and or kind of move your guy around a kite. And if he's just getting low in general, if he has reconstruct up and you're kind of running things around like this, your guy can still be auto attacking and doing as much of your spell rotation as you can while you're spamming a button to kind of move him around, right? All right, so that was level 9 with our 8th skill point. We're starting to look real strong here. Now at level 10 with our 9th skill point, we are going to go into occultism. So what this is essentially going to do, it's a passive, but it makes it so anytime our hex is up on a target, our mortal blast now is going to deal bonus damage, 25% more damage. And then also now our mortal blast is going to reduce the cooldown of our hex by 2 seconds every time we cast it. So now not only is our spirit shred and our disintegrate and our pets attacks decreasing our hex duration, our mortal blast is going to pull 2 seconds off as well. So this is going to let us get significantly more hex detonations through, also applying more of this exposed to make all of our damage over time deal more. I'm just going to drop my skill point from level 11 into amplify, which is what I was running next. A pretty cool ability to super juice your pet. And once you do hit 11 and drop another skill point in, that is going to give you access to this third kind of passive summon slot. And I'm going to just lock that in so you can kind of see what we're working with here. So this is the full level 10 setup minus amplify here. I just have this selected so you guys can kind of see clearly. Now let's take a look at putting it all together with our full rotation. For this first rotation, I'm going to try to go kind of like in slow motion for you guys, because that's the other thing I've really been enjoying about Summoner is they actually have quite a deep spell rotation. There's a lot of resource management going on. There is a lot of pet management going on. There's a lot of kind of pet micro you can do to really optimize things. You also have your pet's ability stack with a separate resource on a separate cooldown, by the way. So anytime I'm casting anything, my pet is not affected by that same cooldown. So let's say I'm casting Reconstruct, my pet, if I press my stomp at the same time, is going to do its abilities independently, completely off of my global cooldown. So even when you're sort of charge casting a spell, like your pet can stomp, right? So you're not limited. There really are a lot of layers of kind of mastery, in my opinion, built into the Summoner that are actually really, really cool. And I've been having an absolute blast on this class so far. Taking a look at the rotation a little bit in slow motion here. We can start with a Reconstruct. This is kind of optional if you want to just get the heal ticking right before you go into combat. Certainly don't have to do that if you don't want, if you want to save the mana. But what we are trying to do, especially if we are engaging onto multiple mobs, is essentially Dimension Bolt, start channeling our Soul Flare, and then as soon as our Dimension Bolt hits, we want to teleport our summon over to that target, and then that's going to make it so as soon as our Soul Flare cast finishes, it's going to blow up because our summon just teleported on top of him, right? And my guy is stuck in the water for a second here. There are certainly situations where your summon will get kind of stuck and eventually will teleport to you. Sometimes you do just kind of have to go for a full resummon. As soon as this Soul Flare detonates, if we want, we can like weave in a stomp to make sure our Guardian is kind of locking in that aggro. But from there, we want to go into our normal rotation. So that's kind of the open, the Dimension Bolt with the Soul Flare charge up to get this like really clean opener. And then from there, we're going to go back into kind of the comfortable rotation we've been talking about. So you want to hex first, because all this other stuff is going to be reducing your hex cooldown. And this is the huge damage pop. The sooner you can get this out is when the exposed is going to take place. This is going to make all your other damage over time deal 25% more. So you kind of want to get hex to pop on a target as soon as possible when stuff's getting beefier. So we're going to hex to get that rolling. Then we're going to spirit shred to get our basic dot out. Then we're going to mortal blast to spread that spirit shred and start our mortal blast cooldown. Then we're going to disintegrate to get that cooldown started. And all of that is going to be burning the duration of our hex down. Shortly after that, our hex is going to pop. So you'll want to look for a second hex application if the target isn't close to dead. If the target is close to dead, you're probably going to kill them before your next hex pop comes through. And then while all that's happening, you want to be keeping Reconstruct up. So pressing this every 15 seconds on cooldown, essentially. And then you want to be looking at your mana. And anytime you have extra essence and you're missing any amount of mana, you're going to want to use this little cast window to pull that mana back out of them. Anytime all this stuff is on cooldown, you just want to let 3 auto attacks go through so that you can reset the cooldown of your Spirit Shred and also start getting a little bit of mana back from our follow through here. Also gives us a little chance at a burn. It's enough going on that it's pretty hard for me to kind of say it all while I'm doing it, but I'm going to do my very best here. So we're going to Dimensional Bolt, charge our Spirit Shred, teleport our guy. It's going to detonate on him. I want to Hex. I want to Shred. I want to Mortal Blast. Ideally, these guys are stacked a little more, so my Mortal Blast is cleaving, right? I want to Disintegrate on the target that I have my Hex on. This is going to pop my Hex. Now I want to reapply my Hex. I want a Spirit Shred. I want a Mortal Blast. I want to make sure my heal is up. See, I'm way behind on heals because I missed the kind of window to start it up, and that's putting me a little behind in this fight. It's going to be okay, though, as long as I avoid the next big slash from the Raider. So if I dodge this with some movement, we are A-okay. I'm going to reapply my Hex. I'm going to Shred. I'm going to Mortal Blast. Maybe go for a little Stomp here with this extra Essence. I'm going to reapply my heal. My mana's looking a little low. I'm going to pull a Siphon out. I'm going to go for a Shield here. I'm going to reflect the damage from that heavy slash. I'm going to continue pumping into this Raider. Get my Hex back up. Go for a Disintegrate. I need to avoid the next heavy. We dodge it easy there. I'm going to reapply my heal. I'm going to put Hexbacks out. This is a little bit of a longer fight with the healer in play, but it's good to kind of show you guys what's up. And now we want to finish stuff off. We can go for like, use all of our essence on like a double slam. I can throw another dimensional bolt for the extra damage just to make sure this guy gets finished off. Then I'm going to start rotating the same exact thing on the healer. And in general, that's a pretty hard pull, right? Both one level up on me with a healer in play. So, you know, a lot of other classes are really going to struggle with a pull like this. If you execute it well, it's going to be just another walk in the park for the summoner. Is extremely strong at kind of handling these tricky situations with multiple mobs, as long as you are keeping your reconstruct up. And we can see my mana's starting to get low. I can use all this extra essence my guy has to do a couple big mana pulls in a row. And I want to start eating into his mana so that all the damage I'm dealing is giving him that mana back. And I'm constantly kind of pulling away from his mana pool, adding to my mana pool, using that to heal him, using my abilities not only to heal him, but to give him the mana that I am pulling out. So this is essentially this loop on the skill tree I was showing you earlier with the heal, the body and spirit, and the siphon vessel. And we basically just continue rotating like this until we whittle them down. And you can see soloing mobs like even one level up, like really strong experience. I'm getting 900, 800 per kill over here. So if you are able to solo, you know, not just one, but multiple mobs in this way, it's actually very, very good XP, even compared to groups a lot of the time. All right, now let's take another look at it on two Raiders. Now these guys kind of slap, but a huge chunk of their damage is held in the heavy strike. So this fight, we really need to focus on keeping Reconstruct up, and we need to focus on a little bit of our pet micro to be avoiding those big attacks. So I'm going to do the same exact thing, but this time I am going to start it with this heal ahead of time. I'm going to Dimension Bolt, start my bomb channel. I'm going to teleport as the bomb goes off. I'm going to get my Spirit Shred out. I want to make sure my Hex is out. I'm going to start with my Mortal Blast here. I really want to negate this first heavy strike to be ahead of the fight, right? And I'm already starting to lose significant amount of mana burning these things early. I'm going to throw another heal out so it's on cooldown. I'm going to do a mana pull. I'm going to move my guy to avoid this next heavy slash. So I just used my move command to just do a little sidestep on that. And we actually didn't even pull the second Raider. Let me get him over here. But we can see you're going to start taking big damage if you take both these heavy slashes at a time. So you're going to want to at least, if you have two of them on you like this, you're going to at least want to be consistently dodging one of the heavy slashes if they're grouped again and your Spirit Bond comes back up. You can also use that to cancel spells if you kind of got to get a little lucky, but if you are kind of anticipating a spell coming, you can use that stun to cancel spell animations as well. I'm going to use the movement to sidestep that one. And we are just kind of continuing to rotate. And as soon as one guy is getting low, you can actually switch to the other target and, you know, rely on your dots and your AoE from Mortal Blast and such to be taking that other target out as you start to build your dot stack, you know, kind of on the second target. So I would say for solo summoner, kind of two mobs together like this, like at your level or one level up, is kind of the sweet spot for sustain XP solo farming, because we can see here my pet's still full mana. So, you know, I can be pulling this essence out of him. I'm still full mana. My pet's low, but he's going to be back with this reconstruct as long as I keep it up on him, right? So me and my pet, we can just keep continuing. Like, we don't have to sit down and eat rations. We just took on two Raiders. I'm full health, almost full mana. My pet's going to be full health very shortly. So one of the main kind of strengths of a summoner, especially kind of playing solo with a tank like this, is just really strong sustain where you don't really have to take breaks. You can continue kind of just rolling through mobs as long as you are maintaining this kind of cycle of resource management. Okay, so now you have a really strong setup built around your tank for solo play. The cool thing is this same exact setup works just as well in group play. So everything we were just talking about right there, you know, kind of soloing mobs with that spell rotation, putting it all together, you're gonna be able to do that same exact thing in a group. If you're interested in a closer look of how to tank in a group, you can check out my previous stream from last night where I was actually just hanging out with my buddies and we were just mobbing through a bunch of stuff together, and I was basically just playing tank the whole time. I've basically been playing tank from level 1 with my group of friends all the way until now. And it's been really, really fun kind of just using my Spirit Guardian to carry all of this like through these early levels. So I'll actually link the VOD to that stream in the description if you want to get a closer look at the tanking. But we're going to use that opportunity to take a quick look at the other pets, and you can use these other pets absolutely with this setup as well. The main thing that's going to sort of lose value is this crazy, you know, kind of reconstruct siphon vessel body and spirit healing loop. If you are using the DPS pet, but you're not really getting any value out of healing it, you can certainly drop this. I think this body and spirit one is always good. So I think you want to keep this in no matter what. And I also think the same thing with siphon vessel. Let's use that opportunity to talk through a couple of the pet controls before we get into the other pets. So something, especially with the DPS pet that comes into play, is you actually have this melee range stance swap. So with this little spirit hunter, you can actually tell him to be attack from a ranged, and you can see if I send him on, you know, this raven, he is going to throw stuff from a distance, and he's also going to be able to use his eviscerate from a distance as well. We can see if we hover the tooltip, it does have a 30-meter range. And if we press this button, he's basically going to switch from ranged mode to melee mode. And in general, from what I can tell, this essentially has no influence on his damage. So it's sort of dependent on how you yourself want him to behave. If you want him to kind of be attacking from a ranged next to your side, or if you want to be him to be kind of frontlining up in the mix like this, kind of keeping stuff in front of you. The other option is this automate pet ability. So if I click this on, now we can see he's just going to be sort of using his own essence to do his stuff whenever he feels like. If the way you like to pay a pet class is for your pet class to kind of do its own thing so you can focus on your thing, then this is a really good option where you're just going to let your pet do what it thinks is best, kind of using its abilities, right? I will say this is almost never going to be the optimal way to control your pet, because it's just relying on sort of automated controls that, you know, very likely at this stage aren't super dialed in yet. And even when they are super dialed in, you're always going to be able to have better control over your pet just doing everything yourself. Now, the downside to that is you're going to have to do all that alongside your normal spell rotation. But for someone like me that's played just countless hours in these types of games, that's what makes Summoner so compelling, is it has an extremely deep rotation along with resource management, along with pet management and kind of micro, that give a really deep mental stack where there's so much cool things to think about, so many things to pay attention to in combat, that it makes the class just really enjoyable with a really high kind of, you know, mastery level. So automate pet abilities is going to basically make your pet use its different abilities with the essences have. That's different than these stances. So automate pet abilities influences how they use their essence and actually click the couple buttons that they have. These stances affect how the pet actually behaves from sort of engaging in combat. And so there are a couple options. We have assist stance, and this is basically to make it so it's going to actively engage enemies that we initiate combat actions against. So if I turned this on, and let's say I just went up to this raven and I auto attacked it, that's going to send my pet on him because he's in essentially assist mode, right? So he's going to go attack anything that I am trying to attack. Then we also have defensive stance. This is going to make it so when the only time he's going to attack is when something attacks it or me. So if I pull him back to me and I put him in defensive stance, he's not going to do anything until this raven attacks him. Now he's going to start attacking it, right? So that's sort of the defensive behavior. And then we also have the passive behavior where it's going to essentially do nothing unless we tell it to do something. And you'll notice that whole first part of the video, this is the stance I had on my pet, and I also had automate pet abilities off. I only really recommend this if you're sort of, you know, really into these types of games and you're looking for kind of really deep level gameplay. This basically makes your pet a direct extension of your summoner. So when you're playing in this mode, you almost want to think of your pet as sort of your right arm. All of its abilities are yours abilities. You and your pet are one. So not only are you going to command your pet to do exactly what you want to do at any given time. You're also going to tell it exactly when to move. You're going to tell it when to stop attacking. You're going to tell it when you want to move to a specific location. You're going to have absolute full control, just like the control you have over your own character, over your summon. And not only, in my opinion, is this super fun, if you're able to master playing your summons this way, this is going to make you the very best summoner you could possibly be, because you're going to be able to have your pet do exactly what you want it to do at any given point in time. If that doesn't sound good to you, if you just want your pet to go smack stuff on its own and be powerful on its own accord, I would recommend going Assist Stance and then going Automate Pet Abilities. And this is sort of like brain off pet mode, where if I have these two things on, you know, I can just very much go focus on my summoner, go focus on my spell rotation, run up this Raven, start doing what I want to do. And now my pet is just going to roll up on it, start using its abilities, start attacking it without me pressing any extra buttons, okay? So automatic pet mode, you want to go Assist Stance and Automate Pet Abilities. For kind of full control pet mode, you want to essentially take those things off, go Passive Stance, and uncheck Automate Pet Abilities, and now your pet's only going to do exactly what you want it to do. In my opinion, of the summons, the best one to kind of use this Automate Pet Abilities is the healer. And kind of the main reason that is in order to use the pet heal, right, you have to actually target whatever you want to heal. So if I'm trying to destroy this Raven, but my, you know, buddy over here needs a heal, I actually have to untarget the Raven, target my buddy, then cast Recreate, then retarget the Raven, and try to go back into my spell rotation without missing a beat. That's pretty hard. So I think for the healer, the Automate Pet Abilities actually makes a lot of sense, where now, even if I wanted full control over her, right, I can essentially put it in passive mode and still have her just like auto heal. So I can tell her to attack still, but now she's just going to be kind of auto healing when either of us are losing health. She's going to use her extra essence on that Essence Explosion. If either of us get a debuff, hopefully she would cleanse it for us. But yeah, I think the Automate Pet Abilities for the healer, as we can see, kind of just keeping us topped off, are actually pretty solid. We're going to use that opportunity to take a closer look at the DPS pet and the healer pet, because we have sort of been so focused on the tank setup. I think the main kind of use case for the DPS pet is if you are in a group that already has a tank, or if you're kind of just chill soloing mobs that aren't super hard. I think as soon as you start to get towards mobs that are quite difficult, you are likely going to want to try to leverage this kind of like infinite sustain loop with the tank. And the main problem is this guy doesn't really hold threat, right? So we can see very quickly there, just casting a couple spells, I pulled the threat of the Raven off, and we ourselves as summoners are squishy. Like we are, you know, not meant to take a bunch of hits, like probably a little beefier than mage, but not much. And so the main power in the Tank Guardian is it keeps everything off of you. And so you can focus on casting and keeping it alive rather than worrying about taking any damage yourself or having to, you know, worry about dodging skill shots and things like that. But if you are kind of comfortable having, you know, aggro on yourself and you're just kind of trying to churn through stuff like right around your level, like one at a time, I think that is a great kind of spot to start leveraging the DPS guy. And we take a look at his abilities. He has Lunge, he has Eviscerate, and he has Incapacitate. So Eviscerate is just like this nice solid kind of damage pump, similar to Stomp. It's not a full AoE around, it's like a frontal cone cleave. And this ability is actually going to do 25% more damage to targets from behind. Keep in mind that's only in the melee stance. So if you do have it in ranged mode, there is kind of no opportunity for that backstab. So if you are using this as DPS in a group, you want to really try to position your Spirit Hunter, you know, kind of behind whatever target the tank is holding, so that he is leveraging that extra, you know, kind of pump on Spirit Shred. And if there's a couple guys on your tank kind of lined up here, if you're able to get your Spirit Hunter behind them all, it's going to be this nice frontal cone of backstab damage. You get some really nice Eviscerate pump coming through if you are able to position him behind. In addition to that, we also have Lunge, and this is basically, you know, kind of really nice engage if you're in the melee. It's a nice disengage if you are in the range. So we can see in melee mode, if I go to lunge this wolf, he's going to kind of glitch out a little bit, but he is going to sort of leap over there and start combat. If he is in ranged mode and something is in within melee with him, if I use disengage, he's actually going to do kind of like a ranger disengage flip backward, right? So there's a couple different options on the way you are using the lunge. And then the final ability is this Incapacitate. So if I use it on this wolf, it's actually quite strong, where you can get a really, it's a full 10-second freeze. Like as long as nothing is dealing damage to this guy, he is going to be completely kind of locked out for a little bit. And if it is in range mode and we use Incapacitate, it's actually going to sort of do this channel from far away. And so the advantage of using it from a ranged is that you can use it from a ranged, but it's going to, your pet's not going to be able to do anything else. He's going to have to channel. But if you use it from melee, you're going to be able to do it and then use your pet from something else. But the trade-off is you have to get your pet into melee range for the Incapacitate to happen. So that's kind of the difference between the stances on this one. So a really good way to use this ability is like crowd control for things that you're not attacking. So this is very useful in a group. It's also useful solo if you're kind of doing what we were talking about, just churning through mobs your level. Let's say me and my homie are fighting this raven here, right? But this other raven pulls for some reason. I can actually use my pet here to come incapacitate this one, get it out of the fight for a sec. Well, I actually put a burn on it with my spellbook, so it broke. But, you know, you're essentially not going to want to attack it, so it doesn't have any dots or anything on it. And then you're going to want to send your guy to incapacitate it, so it's just sitting there for 10 seconds while you're killing the target you were on. And you can do that not only solo, you can also do that in a group, right? Where it's kind of like same exact situation here. Let's say this wolf pulled. I can kind of stun him out, right? And I maybe want to pull my guy back to me a little bit so my AoE doesn't break that incapacitate. But now we have a nice 10 seconds here where we can try to, you know, kind of kill our main target before this secondary target comes at us. And it's a pretty short cooldown too, right? Where you can imagine in a group, if extra mobs are pulling, you can kind of try to use this incapacitate to stop those mobs. The other thing that you can use it for that's going to be quite useful is canceling abilities, right? So if something is mid cast and you incapacitate it, it's going to cancel that cast. So that's another thing that's going to be really useful in a group as a way to use this ability, is kind of as a kick. And it could even be a ranged kick, right? If he's in ranged mode, it's going to have a 30-yard range where if you see a healer, a caster, anything like that, that your tank doesn't have on him yet, that's kind of casting from a range, you want to just hit him with that incapacitate, take him out of the fight for 10 seconds while your group takes down what you're on. Okay, so that is kind of a basic look at the DPS pet. We're going to do same kind of basic look here at the healer pet. And like I mentioned earlier, I think of the pets that, you know, you might want to use this automate pet abilities on, I think it's really kind of good on the healers. So you don't have to constantly be trying to like click your allies to heal them with recreate and then click back. This will let her sort of just automatically heal who's low. The melee range stance swap only comes into play with your DPS pet. With your healer pet, she's just like fully ranged. Your big rock guy is just fully melee. Your DPS pet is the one that kind of has the option to change between. You can see her casting the Essence Eruption there. If I target myself, I can cast the heal. She's also going to be able to cast the heal on herself. And anytime, you know, you get a debuff or she gets a debuff, you can go ahead and use the cleanse. And it's not just a one-time cleanse. It actually is kind of a cleanse over time. I think the healer is going to be most useful in groups. I think there is kind of an angle for using the healer solo where, you know, you're kind of just keeping her around to heal both of you as you try to just pump through stuff. The main problem with this is neither you or your healer are very tanky. So anytime a mob is on either of you, like both of you guys are going to be taking a significant amount of damage, even though you do have those heals. So definitely can be an option if this is kind of the play style you're wanting to lead into. But I do think the kind of value of the healer goes up quite a bit in a group setting versus just solo. I do really like using the healer as kind of like my main backup summon. So if my tank does go down in combat, and especially if you're in a group and you have a second to cast without anything on you, kind of instantly pulling out your Mystic after that, like as soon as your Guardian goes down, just going into this channel and getting your Mystic up so that she can kind of start healing and helping the group automatically, especially if you toggle this on real quick to just let her start throwing out heals on whoever's low. Like, I think that's a really good, you know, kind of backup option when you do lose your Guardian, because when any of your pets die, they inflict the 1 minute cooldown, but that doesn't affect your other summon. So that's kind of, you know, why you're able to get your other two as you go up the tree here for free, is that it gives you the option to summon each of them in combat if the other ones go onto cooldown. All right, so we've kind of gotten through the meat of it. Another thing I want to mention real quick is if you are kind of just like churning through mobs, especially just like rolling on your own, as soon as you finish a fight, and you need, like, let's say you need a couple seconds of cooldowns, you need a little bit of mana, maybe you're waiting on some of your pet essence to generate before you re-engage, maybe you're waiting on your reconstruct, you know, to kind of heal up your tank guy before you look for the next, you know, kind of group of mobs to go after with your Dimension Bolt. That is a perfect time to just go into gathering. So as soon as you get a kill, you can just instantly go to gathering any nearby flowers, trees, rocks, anything like that. Use this little bit of time to let your pet generate essence, let your cooldowns come back up, let your mana regen, let your stamina regen, and boom, I'm going to get not only a little bit of herbalist experience, I'm also going to get leveling experience. Not a crazy amount, but not zero. And so kind of using any nearby resources to fill downtime in your leveling is a really good way to be able to, you know, kind of supplement that experience a little bit. And in the act of doing this, you're also going to slowly be leveling your artisanship. And we can see here, if we look at our gathering skill, you're going to slowly be able to start chipping up these different skills. And you have to get each of these to level 10 before you can sort of gather anything cool or super valuable anyway. So they're definitely worth, you know, kind of starting to level up if you have any interest in crafting or making money selling gathering materials. Now let's take a quick look at useful consumables. There's basically 5 consumables that are useful for you to use. You're really going to want 3 of them kind of on hand at any given time. So the first one you're going to want is rations. These are basically just going to let you, when you sit down to recover mana or health, this is going to make it go much faster. You're going to be able to buy these from over here at the cookhouse to the top right, kind of right below Highwayman Hills. And this kind of little series of nodes here is a really good spot to operate off of as you make your way into this like level 6 to 10 area up to the right here. In addition to rations, you're going to want to keep stocked up on health salves. Now, mana salves, I think, are sort of optional. Health salves are sort of essential, where these are going to let you get out of a lot of tricky situations where you otherwise would have died. The main thing you want to keep in mind with these is you kind of need to pop them early. Because it's not a true potion, it's a heal over time. When stuff is just beginning to start to look sideways is when you want to rip one of these things to get that healing started and let it go over those 20 seconds as you're trying to live. You are going to be able to find health salves in this same exact area here, just at this node down to the south a little bit. It is this right next to the Flame and Formula Ember Spring. There's a laboratory vendor here. He's going to sell both health salves and mana salves. He's also going to sell scrolls. So here you're gonna be able to pick up, if you so choose, scrolls of intelligence. This is just gonna be a nice little juicy 26 intelligence buff that's gonna stay on for 180 minutes once you rip it. So if you have extra coin, I recommend scooping some of those as well. Last one that I think is kind of essential to try to sort of keep up at any given time once you have a little bit of extra coin are these salads. So for Summoner, it's going to be the fruit salad to increase our magic power. You're going to be able to get this at the same cookhouse vendor where you're able to get rations up here. So once you're kind of out of the starting zones, the main 2 vendors I'm hitting to sell my glint and restock are scrolls and salves here at the Flame and Formula laboratory vendor, and then rations and salad here. And this is also, both of these are great areas to just AFK fish. You know, as you come back to town, sell your glint, stock up, go take a 10-minute AFK, start just throwing your lure in the water, scooping that free XP. Taking a hyper quick look at sort of gear and quests here. I really think you're just going to want to put on everything you find for the most part. Like, all my gear is just from RNG drops. What I will say is they added this Destinies tab. And so kind of keeping track of when you are progressing your destinies here, these give pretty damn good loot rewards a lot of the time. So you're going to see when you complete one of these nodes, it's going to light up with a chest. You can click that to claim it. And then there's other claims up here. We can see like this lost weapon chest, I think, is what gave me this fatty spell book, right? Like, you can get a couple really solid drops out of these destiny progression things. And you can do these just as you are, you know, kind of grinding. So here, see, this one has a chest. That means I can click on that and claim it. I'm going to get these extra rewards. And then I also can claim this checkpoint up here at top right. So you can claim each individual node, then you can claim your overall progress up here. And these sort of boxes here are the ones that contain the beefy gear, but I've progressed all of these without doing any quests. I literally just did the starter quest on this guy. That is it. And then I instantly ran away from the giant group that was at this starting zone. As soon as I got through Samaya's Hope, I literally just went north and started killing stuff up in this direction, and I've just been grinding my way up this way since then. There's definitely more quests in the game than there used to be, but I still don't think kind of following quests around is the most efficient way to level. If that's the way you like to level, you can certainly do it that way. Like, and it's not that much, you know, kind of slower, especially, you know, if you find a couple good loops and you have some good contracts off the contract board to kind of follow around, but there's just not that many quests to kind of sustain only following quests around like you would in World of Warcraft. I think eventually there will be, but the game is just not that developed yet. So for right now, you know, finding a good kind of pack of mobs to grind and really practicing, you know, dialing in your rotation and getting efficient at just churning through stuff, yeah, in my opinion, is the most kind of efficient way to level, and still is very, very fun, especially if you enjoy the combat in this game. Like, I've been having an absolute blast just rolling up here, mowing through stuff, and then my friends kind of linking up with me on and off along the way. You know, I'm kind of here for the combat, which is why I'm making all these guides. So kind of just whatever floats your boat. Okay, so closing things out here, we're just going to take one final look at all the skill trees together. So here is our skill tree for level 10. The only one we are not going to have here is Amplify. This is what I scooped at level 11, but this is kind of the final look for the skill tree. We already looked through this rotation and how we build it up very in depth. Now let's take a quick look at our weapon skill trees. So for me, just to add to our dot stack, I'm going with this early burn on our finisher for our book. I'm increasing the chance here, and then I am increasing the base damage of the burn here. Then I am getting the mana follow through on the book. This is just very valuable for this kind of mana sustain loop that we're trying to work. And then I'm also increasing the damage of my projectiles here. I think there's a couple other, you know, kind of decent choices here. We maybe actually would want to go for our finisher damage if we were really looking to scale the value of this burn dot, right? And we're actually not doing that many ranged weapon autos, so I actually think kind of on the fly here that this finisher damage is going to be better. So we'll go ahead and lock those babies in. And then just very recently, I got to this kind of next tier of the spellbook at level, it would have been level 13, it looks like. And there's two options here. There is this perfect timing, which is going to make it so this deadly extended finisher reduces the cooldown of your next ability, or there's this echo, which is going to make it so the next ability that you use hits for bonus damage after the deadly extended finisher. So I'm just going echo into increased chance for the echo to happen right here. I think in general, the kind of chance increases for these finishers really scales their value well, because, you know, grabbing these three nodes makes this happen more than double the time it does. It goes from 25% to 55%, right? And like similar story for something like the echo, where if it's happening, you know, over double the amount, that's basically a, you know, 100% damage increase. So a lot of value in kind of making sure these things happen as often as possible. And then for our melee weapon, you can really experiment here with what you want. I've kind of just stuck with the starter, scepter and shield, or actually I think it starts you with a scepter and a focus. Finally, taking a quick look at our stamina tree. We talked about this at the very beginning, but essentially you have your sprint tree, you have your dodge tree, and you have your block tree. So I think really if you're using the tank pet, it doesn't make much sense to go into the dodge tree because you don't really ever have stuff on you. So I've just been building into the sprint tree here. So I think this is like really good solo to just help you sprint around between mobs, also sprint further to get away. It's going to increase your speed as you're sprinting, and then it's also going to give you a chance to resist crowd control effects. So if you're using sprint to kind of get away, like after your pet dies, I think, you know, you're going to find a lot of value in these talents. And then this is really good to just regenerate stamina after you are done sprinting. I think the main reason you're going to want to go with dodge is if you are, you know, kind of using the DPS pet or the healer pet, and you're not using your spirit minion to kind of hold aggro, then you're going to be using your dodge a lot more to avoid big attacks yourself. So then I think the dodge tree is going to make a lot of sense. And boom, baby, that is the summoner guide. A little longer than I was anticipating, but there's kind of a lot to talk about. There's not only the kind of basics of the game and the spell rotation and building it all up, there's also the pet controls, the different types of pets. So this video might be significantly longer than the other ones, but I hope it was just as valuable, if not more. Remember, if you're looking for more beginner's guides, I'm trying to do one for every class. We already have Mage, Rogue, Hunter up on the channel. This is the Summoner one. We're going to be finishing the other 4 as soon as we can. And then once we're done with those, we're going to be looking to take all these classes deeper into endgame, take a look at more advanced combat, group combat, and what it looks like at higher levels. So if you don't want to miss any of that, be sure to subscribe to the channel. And if you found this video useful, don't forget to give it a like, drop me a comment, let me know what you thought. If you have any questions or anything like that, share it with your friends. All that stuff does a ton to help me out, letting the algorithm push the video. So with that, I just want to say, I really hope you enjoy your time on Summoner, adventuring out here in Vera. I want to remind you to take care of yourself and keep summoning. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.